August 10, 2026. Joined here with Tony O. We're going to talk about the Bills Stadium. We're going to talk about Niagara Falls Pollution. We're going to talk about the controversy regarding the DSA co-chair and maybe a little bit on Trump's wig. Tony, welcome.
The wig.
To the show.
The wig. Listen.
We'll get to the wig, but let's talk
right.
about, we'll save that. Save it. I know you have a take. I know you got to have a take. Someone with
Yeah,
your
I heard
issues.
I heard he's wigged out at his Defense Department, the secretary. How come you didn't tell me that we were going to be out of bombs?
Yeah, it's lots of problems. But speaking of problems, so the New York State in total spent, I don't know, $1 billion?
850 million.
That was Erie County, wasn't it more?
No.
Okay, $850 million.
Right.
To pay for a stadium, the Buffalo Bills Stadium. $850 million is a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, it's everybody in the world. Don't get mad at me. Every single person who studies this said this is nuts to give that much money to a stadium that only has, 8 games a year? Right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So then there was the idea of the design, right?
Yeah.
So the design is, and again, this is supplementing a private enterprise that is incredibly profitable. That has only been in Buffalo since 1968, I think. Is that the year? It hasn't been like, people act like this has been forever, but it's been a long, long time. But anyway, the Bills are beloved, there's no doubt. So you supplement this private enterprise to build this stadium, and we can have debates about whether that's correct. You may remember, Tony, not so long ago, I was saying, why is no one advocating for this thing to be at least in the city of Buffalo? But it isn't. It's in Orchard Park, which is 15 miles away from the city? 20?
Yeah, and in one of the most severe snow belts in this area.
Right across the street from the old stadium. And They kind of implied that's because they wanted to keep the tradition alive. But now we're hearing that there's strict rules regarding tailgating. For example, you can't share food with other families because they want you to, follow their rules and buy food from them.
Also, Nate, I will say for parking.
Yeah.
Once you're out, if you're in the city, there's a lot of, parking opportunities for you, but further out you are, not necessarily the case.
Yeah, you're basically trapped. And I said this at the time, having worked on these type of deals myself. I said the family, the Pagula family, wants a controlled environment because anyone that's advising them said, listen, we need to capture every dollar we can. Make it so they can't get out of this environment. Don't let it have any bleed over to the community. Control parking, control food, control all of it. And they've done that. They've created this control environment. And, listen, we didn't have the debate because they literally shut the debate down. No one, if you talked about it, they immediately labeled you as some sort of traitor to Buffalo because you were driving the team out of the city. Which, it's just anytime someone tries to shut down the debate, there's some problems. But they built the thing, right? For whatever you want to say, it's there. So I was hoping, this is going to be great. But the first day they showed it to the fans, it rains, which immediately demonstrates the fact that the canopy is not really working to protect people from the weather. And they unleashed those horrific Nickel City uniforms. They look like Tecmo Bowl uniforms. And then nobody can see the field in certain seats. So here's a take from that. Let me just play a short clip.
Controversy or online fight or in-person fight about the obstructed view seats, of which there are many. Yeah. There are many obstructed view seats. If you see the picture online of one person thinking, that's like 8 seats in the stadium, the 400 level obstruction of the stairways is definitely more than 8 seats.
Oh, sure.
It's hundreds.
So people have paid for seats in these ridiculous season ticket plans where you're sitting or you can't even see the stadium or can't even see the field, rather. And then the other complaint is the Jumbotron is not exactly jumbo. All right, go ahead. Now, tell me what you think about all of this. You think it's just about the expectations were too large or something? Go ahead.
Well, I think first off, if the state puts in 600 million, the county puts in 250 million or so, uh, and the taxpayers want to be able to see what they purchased, I think, my sense is, let me just
What's going
get
on,
out of there.
Tony?
I had incoming,
All
but
right, gotcha.
I was able to deal with that. So listen, I don't think that they should be charging $50 or $65 a head for the public to come in to see what they bought with their tax dollars for the stadium. I just think it's greedy and it's not a good look.
None of it's a
And
good look. None of it's a good look. And
I'm not going to pay to be able to do that, to be able to see what's what. And
business calls, Tony.
yeah, hold on one sec.
But let me say, while you do that, I'm going to say, look, it's sad. It's sad for the fans that already got priced out of the stadium. It's sad for Western New York, where this means so much to them. I will say this, from afar, it looks really cool. Okay,
It does.
on TV, it looks really cool. I hope it's a massive success because, listen, I don't want this region to fail. I hope the Bills win the Super Bowl. I hope all of it. But it's a little bit of a rocky start. I'll say that. Is that fair to say?
I think so. And again, it was a rush job. Former Governor Cuomo was dragging his feet on this thing. He ended up resigning from office, and I think Kathy Hochul ended up just being stuck with having to do something with the stadium.
Because if the Bills leave and it's on her watch, good luck.
Exactly. She's
Well-
she's going to have a real problem with it. So it just, unfortunately, this is one of the biggest infrastructure projects we've had in the area.
The biggest ever by price.
Yeah, and it got the bums rush, unfortunately, and it's not surprising that some of this stuff is suboptimal. The other thing is a lot of this was farmed out to Jerry Jones, who's the president and the general manager of the Dallas Cowboys,
Yeah.
to his Legends group,
Right.
where they're just handling all this stuff. And unfortunately, I think these hideous looking uniforms that they have,
Oh, they're bad.
when you read the history of it, it just sounds like something an out of towner would have done.
What's
You
the
know,
history? Tell me, quick.
Well, they're saying the history is it's a salute to the
Working class.
to the grain
Yeah.
to the grain mills, to the blue collar, to the Bethlehem plant that was shut down. And you know what? Those were tough jobs. The grain mills went away when I think it was President Eisenhower opened
a long time ago.
the St. Lawrence Seaway. I mean, for God's sakes, which then ended up making the Skyway obsolete. The steel mill was a disaster. That hulking wreck is still there.
I think it's a cool
something
thing.
with
It
it.
looks beautiful, but listen, you and I disagree. I think you think it should
Yeah.
be torn down or something, but I think it's part of our history. It should stay.
Well, I think if it were torn
I
down,
just
we
think
got a
that-
lot of yeah.
I think the uniforms are just ugly. I mean, they don't look like Buffalo Bills uniforms. And in 250th anniversary of the country, you're not going to do some red, white, and blue stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I would have done. I would have went all patriotic because, we're the one team that's red, white, and blue. Anyway, listen, I hope it works out. There's a lot of complaints. A lot of people are grumbling. I wish we would have talked about this. It seems like we worked out of a position of fear with the Buffalo Bills. Oh, they're going to leave. We need to do everything in our power. Open up the checkbook, give them everything they want, put the stadium where they want it. Give them as much money as they want. Let's get it done as soon as we can, because that's not how you negotiate. If you're negotiating from a position of fear, you ever see the old Seinfeld episode where what's the little guy? George wants to get fired. So he stops caring at work and he starts blowing everything off and people are like, that guy's a genius. Have you ever seen that episode?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, but it's some truth to that. If you're scarcity principle, right? If you're so desperate people are going to milk it and make you feel it. But if you're like, hey, listen, you're going to leave, well, go ahead. Let's see what, but if you want to be reasonable and negotiate with us, let's negotiate. And it just seems like all of the local politicians, they were afraid to have public debate on it. They were afraid to talk about it, and they just did it. So we're here stuck with a stadium that, it guarantees we're never going to get a Super Bowl. It has electronics that look like they're from 20 years ago. And, I hope it works out.
Well, Nate, the reality is that there are only so many NFL teams. There are 32, and there are a lot of communities all over the country that will pay a king's ransom in order to get one of those franchises. So that is a fact.
50 or 10 years from now, 10 years, let's say 10. If we still haven't won a Super Bowl, and Mr. Pagula is sadly gone. Sorry. Hope he lives forever, but all of us will die. And the kids have it. And Elon Musk's in Austin says, hey, I got $100 billion. You think they're not going to just move? You think that the fact they have the stadium locks them in forever? I don't.
Yeah.
Sorry to say that. It's not how money works.
Well,
so let's enjoy it while we got it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, my point is look, if we're going to be spending $850 million on this project, I really want to be able to see, from an economic development standpoint, how we can maximize the value of that investment. And I'm talking, anyone who's researched this will tell you, money spent on these stadiums is a loser because it doesn't generate.
From a return on investment, it's a loser. From an emotional perspective or a community pride perspective, maybe we can't measure that or we can't quantify that. But
yeah, but again, if you're locating it downtown in a city center where it's going to be a continual draw, perhaps over 12 months, not just during the season, and maybe you integrate it with some sort of a convention center, I think then, you're creating the critical mass that maybe is going to help downtown.
It's too late for those conversations. I was trying to have them a few years ago. Go online, look. The blowback from, average people was like, I can't believe I lost thousands of followers over this. And they were like, you hate the Bills. I'm like, no, I don't hate the Bills. I love the Bills. But let's make this work for everybody. And there's, again, a dearth of leadership in this town. It doesn't mean we could chase the Bills away. Let's get a better deal or a better stadium, a stadium where people don't pay $5,000 or $10,000 for tickets and they can't even see the field. But I got to move on. Go ahead. Make your last point.
All right. One last thought is that we are one of the two smallest markets in the country to have an NFL team. So the fact of the matter is that our economy typically would not support an NFL franchise if it hadn't been, one of the original AFC teams. So the fact that it's still here is somewhat
a miracle. It's a miracle,
remarkable.
But it's also, thankfully, it's really the reason why it's still here. And people don't want to hear this, but it's because we have a lot of Canadian fans that cross over and support the team. Go to the Ford area right now. You'll see Bills fans everywhere. Go to downtown Toronto. You'll see Josh Allen jerseys for sale everywhere. So it's really a regional team. I was also up in the Hudson Valley this weekend, and I was in a Target, and they had so much Bills merchandise. So it's an upstate team. It's a Southern Ontario team, and I think that's why it works. All right, moving on real quick. So Niagara Falls pollution. I've been talking about this a lot. Guys, this is a huge issue. It's now open knowledge that Love Canal is either leaking or there's a second landfill or something's happening. People are being moved out of their house. They should have done this right in 1960. They didn't do it right. It was it was a Band-Aid. They just put a big, huge clay or cement or some sort of cap on it. And it's been a long time. It's been 50 years and things are moving. And, we're by 80% of North America's fresh water. Things have changed. In addition, you have the radioactivity. I posted the receipts online. They knew that area was surrounded by highly radioactive land. In fact, our local IDA, which is the Industrial Development Agency, was trying to market the land and marketing it as radioactive and trying to get someone to come in for tax credits to develop it. So there has been no leadership on this. And I'm going to say distinctively what we need to do. we need to have like a WPA, and just you can get work from data centers. What if we put everybody to work cleaning this up? I think of the thousands and thousands of jobs that would be created if we turned this weakness into a strength and said we're going to finally clean it up. And don't tell me we can't clean it up. I mean, we cleaned up. This is a nation that builds nations. I saw the infrastructure they did in the United States built in Europe and Japan and Korea. We certainly can do it here. It's a matter of willpower. So we need to get everybody on the same page. Now, go ahead, Tony. Then I have to talk about the recent press conference they had.
Yeah, well, I think people are able to self-select and say, look, this is a toxic place. I'm out of here. For the poor people, and which I don't quite understand, they had something in the paper where a lady was indicating that they moved in, I don't know, 100 yards, something like that from Love Canal. And, you just have to understand, I don't think this Love Canal is anything that's walled off per se. I think the whole area is probably going to have some indication of contamination. So, why would you buy a house
I'll
there?
tell you
Probably
why.
because it's cheap.
Because that's right. That's because it's cheap, but also because the EPA and the DEC said it's safe. They told people, please come. We fixed it. So they didn't fix it. I mean, I would be infuriated if everyone. This is the instinctive thing because we don't want to really accept that our institutions have failed us. Is to blame them. Who's stupid enough to move to next to Love Canal? Well, a lot of families, that was the best option they had, and they were told it was safe. So
This is what I call
the radioactivity. If you're State Senator Rob Ortt, you knew that was radioactive. You should have known. If you didn't know, why weren't you following your own IDA minutes? I looked it up online. Why weren't you telling people, hey, the area off Whitmer Road is highly radioactive? Where were the leadership? Where is any of the leadership? I think people just wanted to, do see no evil, hear no evil, and pretend this wasn't a problem.
Hey, I call this the Jawsification of what happens in Niagara Falls.
Absolutely.
You saw the movie, right? And it was the whole point, we got this beautiful beach town. People come here to swim. The last thing we want to hear
Don't
about
mess
is
it up. Yeah,
we got a
right.
killer shark, right?
The mayor is saying, get those people back in the water. It's like, Don't say a word about that, landfill.
So here's this. You got Niagara Falls. You got millions of people coming there every year. They don't hear, Niagara Falls, New York. They hear Niagara Falls,
period,
radioactive. And it's like, I think I'll go to see the pyramids instead.
Right. Listen, it's been a historic, a huge draw for hundreds of years. I don't see that changing. But you want to make it even better? Clean it all up and turn it into some sort of park. Create new housing for people that have been affected, then compensate them. So that brings me to the fact that Mr. Blakeman, Bruce Blakeman, did you know Bruce Blakeman's ex-wife is married to Paul McCartney?
Get that H out of here.
Yes. Yeah, I heard that.
Right now? She's married to him right now?
Yes, it's his current wife.
Really?
Bruce Blakeman and Paul McCartney are, they were living in the Hamptons and going to the same clubs, and romance took hold. And
get out of here.
Yeah, he lost, or I don't know if he lost, but his ex-wife is married to Paul McCartney.
So are you saying these are two incredibly well-heeled guys?
Yes, that are completely detached from reality.
And she is
and
not
sleeping with each other's wives in New York City. Listen, I love Paul McCartney, but dear God, like who are you hanging with, dude? Anyway, go on.
I don't know. So she is not a gold digger. Is that true?
I think she was,
just really
had more gold than an Egyptian pharaoh herself, but they ended up together. But anyway, Bruce Blakeman.
Right, so what do you make of this guy? What do you make of this guy?
Dope. Okay, listen, Bruce, you're a Republican. All you do is say 24 hours a day is cut environmental regulations, let corporations run free. That's your whole pitch. And now you're like, oh, well, because it's politically expedient, let's help these families out. How? From the EPA that you gutted? I mean, eventually the EPA is going to have to get involved in this, right? The EPA, the Environmental Protection.
Who runs director.
Who runs it? Who runs the EPA currently?
Oh, he's a local man.
Lee Zeldin, who ran for governor against Kathy Hochul, a Republican. And his whole thing is unshackle business, remove regulation. What does regulation mean? Regulation means you have laws so companies like Goodyear can't pollute the air and, give our kids cancer. That's what regulation means. We're not talking about the bureaucracy of government. We're talking about multi-billion-dollar companies that want to make a little bit more money by polluting us and killing our families. And that's
when I was a youth,
Go ahead.
Yep, when I was a youth, we ended up going to Niagara Falls. Anytime we drove by that hooker operation, we had to hold our breath because it stunk that bad.
It was, and they, by the way, back then they had a whole propaganda thing where we need to clean, we need to protect, or don't mock hooker chemical. We're a good business of a good family people. Meanwhile, they were knowingly polluting our land, pollution that we still have to deal with today. Now the problem is, back then they were making the argument it's the free market. We need to make some money. No one calculated into that formula the fact that they were killing us to make that money. So, someone has to go after these guys. I hate to say that. And I mean, go get some money from these corporations, many of which still exist, or their remnants still exist, and go to them and say, listen, people are still dying in Niagara Falls because of the crap you did 60 years ago. Come back, fix it. And Bruce Blakeman's not going to say that. He's just going to say, Kathy Hochul. How is Kathy supposed to fix it? Now, Kathy Hochul should have came to Western New York. But she's out of her mind politically on this, and I tried my best to get her here. And the argument against me is, well, how can you couldn't get her here, Nate? And you're right. Maybe if I was an assemblyman, I could get her here. So give me the chance to have a position where I can actually be in the room and force her to come. Because right now, your Republican Rob Ortt just wants to grandstand on this. I mean, again, Rob Ortt has spent his entire political career saying we should get rid of environmental regulations. Right as we speak, he's trying to put data centers along the river. And he's going to be the champion for these families? It's a joke, Tony. It's a joke.
All right, so here's how I would frame this. First, I would tell these people that they are collateral damage. Okay, it's a fact. Just as in NAFTA, when all the corporations left the breadbasket of this country and these people were put out of work, they were collateral damage. And they ended up getting their revenge on America because they were forgotten. So I would say first, collateral damage. Second, the medical establishment has to step up. The State University of New York, they have significant resources. I think if they came out with statistics and said, look,
Yeah, right.
we've got higher than average XYZ for these illnesses here, and it tends to be tied to these chemicals, I think that would help to make the case.
Everyone,
but again,
all hands on
I
deck.
don't hear the university, I don't hear the medical profession stepping up with this kind of data.
Tony, you understand my point? You need to break it down to an even more simple level. Because you have people that consume media locally, and a lot of people consume Fox. A lot of the people in Niagara Falls are older, and they're kind of like their intuition is to vote Republican. Now that's because the Democratic Party is perceived as preachy on social issues and out of touch on social issues, and a lot of that I actually agree with. I agree with that. They're out of touch on a lot of social issues. They're in outer space. But but generally, even Republicans kind of think that Democrats are better for fighting for working people. They'll begrudgingly admit it. But the problem is now you have this. The narrative locally is very simple. Kathy Hochul's not here and Bruce Blakeman is here. Now, to take it a step further and say, well, Bruce Blakeman has no regard for the environment whatsoever, or Rob Ortt has been a state senator for 20 years with knowledge of the radioactivity, and he didn't do anything. Okay? He didn't do anything. But that's a whole step that we have to go into and explain to people, saying these guys are wolves in sheep's clothing. They're not going to do anything for you. In fact, they don't believe the government has a role to clean this up. And if they do, you should say, will you pledge to find the resources to force Lee Zeldin, to force everybody else to clean it up? Because this is what I said. I said publicly yesterday. If Bruce Blakeman, if Paul McCartney and Bruce Blakeman, if both of them, if they come forward and say, I'm going to clean up Niagara Falls, you know what I'm going to say? I'll vote for you. But they're not saying that. They're just saying, oh, we hate Kathy Hochul. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
Well, I think it's really easy to paint other people as bad just because they look a certain way, just because they may be a certain gender, just because they may be a member of a certain political party, and you have preconceived notions about them. But the bottom line is, these people are elected. They are hired by us to do a job for us. And the number one job they have for us is to keep us safe.
Yeah, talk
And they
about
have
public
fit-
safety. Dear God, this is the biggest public safety issue we have.
I mean, they have, they have successfully skirted this issue for decades, and they're hoping that it'll continue to be the case unless people organize and say, we
But
demand.
Tony, hear me out. I'm just going to ask it simply. You do understand the absolute ridiculousness and the hypocrisy of people that just have spent their whole life saying cut environmental protections, going after Kathy Hochul over this. People that actually had firsthand knowledge that this area was polluted. You see what I'm trying to get to? I mean, the voting matters. Who actually is in office matters. Now, you might be mad at Kathy Hochul, but you do get that both Rob Orr and Bruce Blakeman campaigned for Lee Zeldin, who's in charge of the federal government's Environmental Protection Agency.
That she's trying to dismantle.
That she's trying to destroy. Do you guys get? Do you see what I'm saying? Speak to that for me. That specific point. How insane the disconnect is that these people would even pretend to be caring about the environment.
I mean, what happens if, the whole proposition, I think, over time has been, we're bringing in jobs. Jobs are, you're going to be able to raise a family on a job. And then we say, okay, that's good. But let me ask you this. How about if the jobs we're bringing in are going to significantly impact your lifespan? You're not going to live as long. And assuming you are, you're going to be sicker. Do you still want those jobs?
You can't have a job if you're dead.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the data center issue with the fact that even in the data centers that are circulating water, it's creating new forms of bacteria that they eventually have to discharge into the public drinking system, and it's polluting the public drinking system? So have you heard this?
Just a clip, not much in detail though.
Did you hear about the fact that Amazon just created a data center that is connected to the greatest polluting power plant in the entire country? I mean, like these are the things we need to look at, because it doesn't matter how great our economy is if we are not alive.
Well, I got that, but again, it's really difficult, Nate, to connect the dots, because people tend to look at their environment, whatever it is, and they tend to think that's normal. Okay, so if people are dying disproportionately from a certain illness or ailment or disease, they just seem to think, well, I guess everyone's got the same thing going on, but that's not necessarily the case, and this is why we need
a comprehensive review. We need legislative hearings about whether the DEC and EPA lied to people.
Let's just talk about that for 1 second. Who we have these standards now, unless we've got, I don't know, whoever, monkeys, volunteers, whatever, to determine what level of these toxins are in fact toxic to human life. We have to ask, who set the levels? Is it industry?
Yeah, but
is it science?
They're playing with the numbers. In the case of the docks over by Griffin Park, they're saying, well, it's within the reasonable grounds for pollution for a industrial site. And you're like, wait, dude, there's a playground here. So like you can see, or like over by Whitmer Road again, Tony. If you were in a position of leadership and you knew that land surrounding a bunch of people's homes in a very, nice neighborhood was highly, highly radioactive, would your idea be, let's go to the private sector to see if we can get it fixed up? Or would you be like, oh my God, got to call the EPA. We got to get these families out of here. We got to get all the land tested. They didn't do that. Because I think part of it is like they're just not good leaders and there's a lack of creativity.
Well, listen, if I admit there's a problem, then there's a problem. If I don't admit there's a problem.
Nobody wants to have this happen on their watch because then they have responsibility. And yeah. I think it's also the Republican idea that, hey, the private sector is always better. We don't need to go to the EPA. We'll just put it out to bid and someone will come and clean it up for us. So no surprise, no one came and cleaned it up. Again, for the listeners, I'm telling you, the Industrial Development Agency of Niagara Falls knew the land surrounding the neighborhoods that was radioactive, and they actively tried to market the land. They did not inform the homeowners. Now, if the head of the IDA wants to talk to me about this, or more importantly, how about my opponent, who I think appointed her? Does my opponent want to talk about it? Why they didn't do any oversight review of the IDA's actions on this? Because you
Hey Nate,
appointed them.
let's just look at the parallel. Okay, you own a house, right? I own a
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
In the event that somebody wants to make modifications to their house within, I don't know, whatever it is, 300 feet or 100 yards of your house, you had the planning board ends up sending you a notice in the mail saying that this is something that's going to happen around your house and we're going to hold a
That's
hearing.
such a good
You have
point.
a right to attend that and make your views known. So for God's sakes, if you've got something that's toxic or radioactive,
Yeah,
wouldn't you think at
you
least get a
are the
letter?
leadership said, "Hey, God, this land is super radioactive. I should probably, the levels that I've seen are not just unsafe; they're crazy, Tony. If I mean, I'm not a scientist, but the numbers people have shown me are nuts. And not just this over at Love Canal, it's unlivable property, and people do have
Okay,
kids there. It's insane.
okay, so in America, what do we do when we run into a situation like this?
What I
Right?
would do is say rack and stack priorities. What's the most important thing? What's the most urgent thing? Number one is safety. How do we get people out of there? Number two, how do we clean it up and make it safe? I mean,
All right.
number three, who was responsible for not talking about this before?
Well,
That's the last part, because the first part is to save lives.
I
And
think in America, okay, I think in America, three words sum it up.
what?
Class action lawsuit.
Well,
That's right.
no,
Because
I wish you were right, but that's not. Contrary to popular belief, it's very difficult to bring any type of class action lawsuit. It's very difficult. I mean, listen, the reason why all of this, like all your buddies, I know your buddies at the golf course, all your buddies at the golf course get so rich off of class of being lawyers, is because they do the old ambulance chasing business and like, hey, we're gonna annoy you unless you settle, and that's what they do for these cases. They settle. I mean, but taking these cases to court for huge billion-dollar lawsuits, only the best lawyers do that. And it's not easy, and you have to have, a lot of things fall in place for you.
oh, yeah,
So
I mean, you know, there are firms that specialize
because
just
because
right.
the corporations in America have pressured legislators to create laws that make it very difficult to actually bring these lawsuits. So, we'll see. I think that, but I think the only answer is political, and not political in the sense of, hey, I want to be your boss. No, the political sense that you have to have leaders who actually care about this, because that's why we have a government, because a government has to step in and be the referee once in a while and say, listen, this is wrong. We're going to fix it. But
I got it. And you have you've organized a gathering of people at the Wyndham Hotel in Niagara Falls, and you had I guess
it
a couple
was
hundred people
it was
show up for
great.
that.
It was great, but it was
What's
like,
the follow-up going to be like for
well,
that? Those people
I
came.
think the follow up was supposed to use that meeting to pressure the governor to come. Now I had
Mhm.
another meeting this morning because she's the one who can really put pressure on the EPA and
Yeah.
really make this a big issue. And I had another meeting this morning where I was like, listen, we need to get her here. And I told the very senior person, I'm not going to say the name, but
Mhm.
probably the most senior person in the government besides the governor. I said, you need to get the governor here. And she said, I agree. I 100% agree. So we'll see what happens, because the governor, first and foremost, you don't got to promise to make everything right. It's not been right for a long time, but you need to look at these families in the eye and say, hey, I know you're struggling. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you have a place to live. And like, this is an emergency. This is a major emergency. And deflect isn't going to work, guys. Think about this as a hurricane or an earthquake that happened. You don't have a choice. You got to fix it. And to Bruce
Let me ask you
Blakeman,
this.
don't just
Yeah.
talk. Tell me what you're going to do to fix it, Bruce.
One last thing, if someone claims to be a pro-life candidate, pro-life individual, if in fact that's their belief system, I think having infants, having children raised in an environment where you've got some of these levels are just off the meter,
It's wrong.
that is, that is that's just wrong, and you cannot compartmentalize these things just to be relative to abortion without looking at some of the crazy readings that we're getting and having little kids living there And, we're saying that, well, we don't think it's that bad and they don't have to move. I mean, that ain't right.
So I got to talk. Moving on because we're in agreement on this. Come on, Governor, let's go. We need you. Turn this into a strength.
Yep.
We're going to talk about the DSA. Now, I am not a DSA member. In fact, most of my experiences dealing with the DSA were not good.
Tell people what that means, DSA.
Democratic Socialists of America.
Okay, because they thought it was a new disease.
Now, you've seen me on this podcast alone talking many times about my feelings about places like Scandinavia that have broad, social safety nets. I'm all for that. The problem I have with the DSA is that's not what I generally saw them talking about when I would talk to members of the DSA. It was wild stuff. It was like, let's get the rich and burn their houses down. it was straight up Marxism in some cases. And these were small. Back then, the DSA was very small. And worse than that, and I say that deliberately worse because I think that identity politics creates nothing but division and insanity. It was all identity politics. It was all like, you're this group, or you're this group, or you're this religion.
Well, Nate, let me ask you this. Why is there a D in DSA? I mean, why don't they just come out as a socialist party and do that? Why are they?
Because they believe the
Democratic
socialist principles must be enacted through voting. I would guess. It doesn't matter. So now that they have this platform, because I think the platform's coming from a lot of people who feel, including myself, that the Democratic Party has been a sellout party, that the Republican light party. They've done nothing for working people for years. They've given working people preachiness about social issues. Like, oh, you're bad. You're doing the wrong things. You're thinking the wrong way. You're having sex the wrong way. They did all that stuff, but they didn't do any of the fundamental issue of making workers stronger and attacking capital while helping labor. They didn't do that stuff. They got like people like Bill Clinton got allergic to that. So now we have this moment where people are like, we need real change in this country. We have trillionaires and everybody else nothing. So the DSA has stepped into that leadership vacuum. But some of these people have beliefs that are just bonkers. Okay, I'm just going to say it boldly. Like, get rid of prisons, which is, stuff like that. Okay, have you followed any of this, Tony?
I do. And I do think that these people are just... it's like Andy Warhol said, is there 15 minutes of fame? They're not going to go anywhere saying defund the police. I mean, they actually probably need more police. Maybe we need better training.
I think
we don't need to defund that.
I think police that's better and more, dedicated to actually helping people and helping civic order is a fair conversation to have. And if somebody said 10 years ago defund the police, or 5 years ago when they were angry when they saw someone get their head bashed in on social media, I get it. I get the anger. But it's 2026 and you're out there saying we should get rid of prisons? Well, then what are you going to do with all the prisoners?
It's the stupidest thing, you've ever heard. And they're not going to get any traction. And people are going to look at them and they think,
I don't know.
It's great because someone's looking at me. But the fact of the matter is, what does the public want?
Well, listen to this. This woman right here is going to talk about, she's a co-chair of the DSA. Okay,
how many people are in that? Like a dozen? I don't know.
It's a lot now. It's a lot. Here's the co-chair of the DSA. And again, you know me. I've been fighting for Medicare for all since I started because I think it's practical and it makes economic sense in a system that's so corrupt. But this is her talking about taxing the rich, okay? Which is, again, a position I've advocated for, but she can't answer what that means. Listen to this. Oh, we're going to turn it up.
Absolutely. Well, what is tax?
We do believe in taxing the hell out of millionaires. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what does taxing the hell out of them mean?
Yeah, I don't have like a solid, but I think.
But shouldn't you?
I
mean, if you're the co-chair, of the DSA, shouldn't you be more specific than just taxing the hell out of something? What exactly do you mean?
So again, it's democracy, right? And we have to look at what we need to spend and what we need. We don't want to depend on the existence of millionaires because that means people are still getting exploited. So yeah, we need to look at what we need to pay for in the interim, what sort of tax base we need for that to happen, and then and build from there. We do believe in.
So she basically can't answer the question what she means by tax the hell out of millionaires. Now,
well, that's real easy. It's real easy to say. What I will say to you is, in this country, we do have a progressive tax system, and the top tax bracket is 37% on income tax. Now, we have different, lower brackets, but, the top is 37%. If you look at New York State, you're going to be topping out at 7 or 8%, which means that if you run a business and you've got a subchapter S, all of those business profits flow through to your personal return and you're paying taxes at whatever the highest rate is. So my point is, if someone is doing well in business and they're in a top tax bracket, they may be paying close to 45% of their income in income taxes, not to mention payroll taxes, property taxes, and sales taxes. So,
Tony, this is what I said online this morning, okay?
yeah.
If
all right.
you're going to tell me if you agree, okay? If you're going to
I will-
advocate for
I
a
will
wealth
tell you.
tax, you
Yeah.
better have an answer for what that actually means. You can't just say tax the rich. Okay, who's rich? 5 million, 10 million, 50 million? And what stops some future politician from moving that number lower and lower until we're taxing every dentist who, owned Apple stock in the 80s? So here's my answer. Start at 100 million. Now, it may seem like this is me not reading, but it may seem
Arbitrary. Go ahead.
arbitrary, but I hate to break this to you, there's numbers that are done arbitrarily all the time in law. I mean, you have to pick a number, whether you're doing actuary tables for insurance or something else.
All right, so you got 9 digits. That's it.
But I base
100
this
million.
on that's roughly 500 times the median household income in America. Which seems to me a way to start. 500 times the median household income. So we're not talking about taxing your local buddy who has a very profitable landscaping business here. We're talking about real, institutional wealth. And then I would say that tax also could be marginal. So if the threshold is 100 million and you're worth 101 million, you suddenly get taxed. You don't suddenly get taxed on the 100 million. The wealth tax applies to the 1 million above. The wealth tax applies to the 1 million above the threshold. So I don't want to destroy the incentive to create great wealth. I just think.
So what would the rate be for that 1 million over 100 million?
I think we can negotiate it. But the point is, the number isn't the principle. The formula is. We have to have some formula. And people say, well, how can you decide? What are you talking about? You decide all the time. Who gets health care? What in network means, what out of network means.
Yeah,
all the law is definitions and limits and arbitrary negotiated thresholds. So in this instance, I say, listen, the reason why we have this is when people are creating wealth that is no longer productive. It's wealth that is just stagnating or creating massive inequalities that jeopardize the whole system and jeopardize the democracy, which is the case of Elon Musk that can go and buy elections and probably bought Trump's election. Literally had so much money to spend on social media and propaganda that he can just buy elections. So we're trying to create a healthy system, and you have a healthy contagion in the system, which is super wealth. So I guess that's what I'm getting at. We create a formula that we can negotiate, and I think is a threshold of 500 million.
Right. So my point is that there are people who've got a lot of money, and usually what they do is they invest it in other businesses or they invest it in venture capital. Those are active things. They're not sitting on their hands.
No, which is causing the problem, Tony. And I'll explain why. Yeah. Because they're buying more and more houses around here. They're buying all kinds of houses and renting them. Venture capital, or PE, private equity, is gutting local franchises, gutting local housing. Because you're right, they keep dumping it to get more and more stuff, which increases the inequality. That's exactly the problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm no fan of private equity. Let me just say that, okay? I'm not a fan of it. All I'm saying is there are people who've got significant assets and they decide to deploy them in other businesses or in medical research or whatever the case is, where it's they think it can be most productive. Now, what you've got is basically a nexus between government and politicians and free enterprise end of things. You can either have the government tax everything, and you've got a bunch of these legislators who decide who will get XYZ, typically in order to buy votes. Or on the private side, you say, you know what, I'm going to give money to XYZ charity because I think they're being more effective than what government programs are like. I think you're always going to get that tension.
which is I think a doomsday scenario in some circumstances.
Oh no!
I am dreadfully afraid of a. I don't think people realize how bad a system can get if it goes to a communist type system. Like I've seen it firsthand. It becomes a detriment to freedom when you and that being said, I think we're in that situation right now with it's far more dramatic with right wing, the leadership that we have, the fascist leadership that we have, that's like creating this, vampire capitalism. I don't want to go from one extreme to the other is what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Peggy Noonan had an editorial. She does in the Wall Street Journal. I think it was on Saturday, and she said socialism is a big problem, and it's here right now. So basically, the reason we've got these issues today is that it's a failure of the economic system to be able to meet the needs of most of the public. Now, it certainly is benefiting a certain segment of it, no doubt, but many, many more people are not benefiting from it, and that's why they turn to these crazy
We've been through this before. Okay, Russia, China. When you have extreme wealth inequality, people try crazy stuff like government grocery stores. We've seen government grocery stores in North Korea and China. Guess what? They don't have any food. They have nothing to sell.
Nate, listen, there was just
maybe I'm just old and I can remember what it was like to have those countries actually exist. But there's an idea out there now that, if we just left Cuba alone, it would have been booming. Cuba was a incredibly repressive regime. It doesn't mean parts of the United States and our criminal system don't need massive reform. It does. But to praise Cuba is extremely misled, okay? There may be some good things that they've done with the medical system or something else, but are you going to praise North Korea? By the way, the North Korean economy is booming right now. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. I read that. But I want to bring it back to Buffalo for the grocery market. There was a store on Ellicott that was on Ellicott Street that was built, and they needed government subsidies for it. I forget the
Bray
name
Miller
of it.
Market?
Bray Miller's Market, exactly.
How about that
they
place?
said, look, we're down to the hood, and there's a desert. We need to provide quality food for people. Well, they said, okay, we're going to do a subsidy. Well, guess what? Subsidy runs out. And they say, oh my God, we're going to go under.
More. We
need more money.
Did you ever go in that place? There was nothing to eat.
Yeah.
It was like they'd have one luxury pastry for like $60 and no food. It was the weirdest place. It was a complete nightmare.
So here's government, trying to tell private enterprise what
government's job is to create the structure,
the conditions
for private sector to thrive. The problem right now is government has also created a structure where no one can thrive in the private market except for the most powerful players. Everybody else gets squeezed out. So we need to have some balance, but I am not a DSA member and I am not a communist. And I'm not saying that to get votes. I'm saying it because I lived on the North Korean border for years. I lived in China. I know what those regimes created. They created repression and starvation. Okay, and the reason why the North Korean regime is starting to thrive right now is because they're turning to the free market to supplement their authoritarian government, which is another horrible combination. But go, what you're saying?
Yeah, and what people don't recognize, especially my friends at the club, they don't recognize that the people who are...
You got to bring me on a guest pass one day.
Oh my God, listen, the people who are in cabinet positions at the federal government are some of the wealthiest people that have ever been in government, period.
Yes.
Period. So the thought that they will understand what you are going through or your family are going through is patently absurd. And it's like you've created a government of American oligarchs, and you're wondering why in God's name is it not being responsive to me?
And I agree. I totally, everything you're saying I agree with. I'm sorry to cut you. Keep going.
No. And so it'll be really interesting at the midterms whether the farmers decide that their lot in life is considerably worse due to the government policies of this administration. It ain't weather, it ain't other things, it's these policies. And one other thing, you look at the inflation rate, you look at wages, but the bottom line is, people need to have inflation-adjusted wage growth.
Yeah.
And if their wages are not growing fast enough to keep pace with inflation, they're going to have some problems. There is going to be discontent.
There is discontent, and I am fearful that we're going to have ICE agents in the streets in 2026, and there's going to be mayhem. I think that Trump is going to try to interfere with our democracy. I think that a lot of people are saying that. That's not just me. His former cabinet members are saying that. So we're in a rough period here, and this is the type of period that you see governments fail. And I don't want to say that because I hope it doesn't happen. I hope I'm just being a nervous Nelly here. But the wealth inequality, the rise of extremist voices. Speaking about extremist voices, she says here that they didn't endorse Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris because they weren't far left enough. So therefore, they left the door open for an authoritarian. Here we go.
To endorse Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump in 2016. Mm-hmm. You happy about that decision?
I think it would have hurt our credibility a bit as people who are actually standing for socialism and against neoliberalism.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you let an authoritarian through the door. Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump, no endorsement. Tell me about your rationale.
We felt that our credibility really stood on saying, we are socialists. We are offering you a real alternative. I didn't think that our endorsement would really make a difference one way or the other.
They didn't endorse Kamala Harris. I mean, listen, you got to understand that this is not about, they say that a lot of activism is just about self-expression or self-importance. Guys, there's real consequences to your lack of action on some of this. She's like, well, wouldn't it matter if we would have endorsed? Yeah, would have. A lot of young people looked to you guys and you said, hey, we're going to stick this one out. And now we have an authoritarian in Donald Trump as the president of the United States.
Yeah, it's
playing games.
I'm telling you, oftentimes there are simple solutions to problems, and the simple solutions typically are the wrong solutions.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Now I want to play her talking last thing. Her talking about the Palestinian issue. Now, Tony, you and I have talked about this a long time. By any legal definition, what's happening in Gaza is a war crime. It is a genocide. And what happened in the West Bank is also, it's apartheid. It is. Now, that being said, what happened on October 7th, and the fact that some people that are members of the DSA that day went to protest praising Hamas is crazy. And this is the problem with identity politics. Whoever the identity of the person is shouldn't matter as much as the values. Do you believe the rape of civilians, the murder of civilians is wrong? I do. I don't care if a Jewish soldier or an American soldier or a Hamas terrorist guy is doing it. It's wrong. So let me just play this clip.
I think what might have disturbed some people who were watching that Fox clip, there was a certain kind of, breezy, yeah, I'm for that, and there was no detail at all.
Okay, so we're going to put up on the screen a few of the things that are part of your platform, and I want to ask you, just give me sort of a true or false on these. Abolish the Senate. True. Okay, replace the presidency and Supreme Court as we now know them. Yep.
And when you come to an issue like prison abolition, and just say, yep, I'm for that, or defund the police, sure, I'm for that, it was a little startling. Now, it might have been the form of the show. So,
okay, there you go. So that's the last thing I'll play from her. And I've been to meetings with people like this so many times, and they have this glib attitude and this disdain for people who are outside of their, self-chosen group. And listen, I find it repulsive. I'm sorry, I do. I find this type of and I'm all for bold political ideas, but I'm not for flippant answers to very complex things that affect people who actually are living in places where they need the police, for example. Now, I've said things too in the heat of the moment, but when you're the co-chair of a DSA organization that has such an outreach, you need to be a little more, you need to have thoughtful answers prepared. When someone says...
Nate, what I can say is years ago when we had fewer media channels available, only qualified people tend to get on and espouse their opinions. But today, you've got a lot of people who are, manifestly unqualified. They really haven't dedicated much bandwidth to what they're talking about. But because they're given a platform, they go out, they shoot their mouth off, and it just muddies the water, causes more confusion. I don't think it's helpful
The
to the.
DSA didn't endorse AOC because they said she was too radical on Israel, too supportive of Israel. Like, what do they want? I mean, this is the thing about, listen, and I'm someone who truly believes, I do not, again, you've spoken to me for years. I think the group that I've attacked the most is the establishment of the Democratic Party because I think they're feckless. I get that. But some of these ideas, and I'm going to say it, regarding sexuality, and I'm about freedom. You should be any adult should be allowed to do anything they want, but that's not what we're talking about. Some of the stuff about kids, some of the stuff about Gaza, and the response to October 8th, it's really outrageous. Okay, it's outrageous to say that 9/11 was the America deserved 9/11. Now that's what Hassan Piker said, and apparently he's apologized for it. But isn't it fair to say, listen, if someone says something stupid on Twitter once or they get emotional, yeah, it's fair to say, hey, were you wrong? And I would appreciate if somebody said, yeah, I was wrong to say that. But I don't see that in a lot of these people. I see I'm going to double down on that. Go ahead.
Well, listen, their job is to be controversial. My job is to say, and again, this is the majority of Americans said, I think we need to look a little bit more inward. We need better quality schools. We need better roads.
Practical.
We need safer cities.
Practical
This
solutions.
is what we want. Israel is a world away from me.
Yeah.
It is. And by the way, we're ignoring the continent of Africa.
Yeah, where's the
If
genocide?
we're talking about that, we also.
But the problem with Israel, and I agree with this, is we're paying for the war, and now we're fighting another war on behalf of Israel, and so it's like I'm all for saying, hey, no more defense spending for Israel. This is crazy. We're being dragged into their wars.
Well, listen, Nate. After World War II, you tell me where the United States military has been really successful. And I'd have to say, it isn't so much a condemnation of the military as it is of the leaders who are in civilian positions who decide to deploy them. And especially, we haven't had success in the Middle East for how many years? Why in God's name are we going back again?
Because we have a glory hog president. Okay, real quick.
Yeah.
President Trump's wig. So he had a wispy hair.
I had to get one of those.
And now suddenly he has a thick head of hair.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I have.
He's gone full blonde.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for some eyes to poke out of the top of his head and say, meow.
Do you want me to get you here? I'm going to show a picture of it. Look at that. Look at that hair.
Yeah.
Whoa, Trump.
Yeah. Yeah. He really ought to be doing a commercial.
His hair looks like my hair now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it could be like Trump hair, right? This is one of his latest businesses. I don't know why he hasn't done that.
It's thick. It's lovely. It's glowing.
Yeah.
It looks like Achilles or something.
Yeah.
All right. Any other final thoughts, my friend?
Yeah. Well, let's just talk about your campaign. How's it going? You are running for the New York Assembly in District 145.
Well, I'm definitely getting my message out there. I'm going to be knocking a lot of doors. Listen, we're against the Republican system out here, like I've always been, and it's the last two elections were 30-point blowouts for this seat. Not by me. The two good people ran and they got blown out. I'm just asking people to look at this objectively. Do you want someone who's actually going to fight to clean up Niagara Falls? Do you want someone who's going to fight for their share of money from the Power Authority? Do you want to fight for somebody for their share of the other resources? It's just going to actually ask the tough questions like, does the casino compact make sense for the people of Niagara Falls? Then I'm your guy. But how's it going?
No.
Listen, it's a fight, but I'm loving it.
But if you're their guy,
yeah,
you have to be able to support you two ways. One is by donation. Two,
just go to votemcmurray.com. Vote Nate McMurray. Vote Nate McMurray.
Vote Nate McMurray.
If you go to the other site, you might get to McMurray, Canada, Fort McMurray, Canada. No, it's Nate
okay.
McMurray.
So,
Nate McMurray. And then
okay. And by the way, if they go on the votenatemcmurray.com website, is there also an area where they would be able to volunteer?
Yes.
Go door to door. What kind of volunteers would you need? What do you need?
It's all door to door. You win elections going door to door. And I know people don't want to hear that. They want to say, I want to sit in a room and talk policy with you. That's what the podcast is for. Come on the podcast. But if you want to really do the work of politics, it's this. That's what it is.
All right. So
Here, we'll do that here.
votemeBigWorry.com,
Knocking doors.
knocking doors.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, listen, hopefully you're going to have some success with that. And I think it's time for us to get on to other things.
Take care, man. See you later.
All right. See ya.